Hello, good morning friends. Welcome back to your favorite channel Code One Digest. Today in this tutorial we are going to learn what is middleware in Nestjs framework. What is the purpose of middleware in Nestjs framework? How can we use it in our project? What problem it solves for us, right? So all of that we are going to learn in this tutorial. So stay tuned and watch this tutorial till end. We are going to learn middleware in Nestjs framework. Friends, in the previous video, I explained what is controller, what is provider, and what are modules. So go and watch all these videos if you want to learn what is controller, what is provider, and what is modules in Nestjs framework. So go and watch this tutorial. It is going to be very informative for you. Friends, I have also created a complete playlist for Nestjs framework where you will find all these tutorials. You can go and watch the complete playlist where all these tutorials are there, setting up the project and explaining the controller, provider, module, and also having few example projects on Nest.js microservices with PostgreSDB and also Nest.js MVC project. So all of that are part of this playlist. You can go and watch this playlist. Friends, so here is the agenda of this tutorial. I'll explain you what is middleware. Then I'll show you how can we code the middleware in Nest.js framework in our project. I'll show you how can you configure the middleware in module, then how to apply middleware for specific routes, how to use middleware for specific HTTP method, then how can we use wildcard characters in middleware routes, how to exclude certain routes from middleware, what are functional middleware, and what are global middleware. So all of that I'm going to cover as part of this tutorial. So in 10 minutes you are going to be subject matter expert of Nestjs middleware. So watch this tutorial till end. So here is the Nestjs middleware. Middleware is a function which is called before route handlers. What does that mean? So before request reaches to a controller, our middleware will get called. So middleware is like our filter chain. All those filter will get called and they will process the request. They will have access to the request and response object and pass that request to a next filtering chain. Same concept is here. All these middlewares are chained together. They process the request and they pass that request object to next middleware in the chain. They have access to request and response object and they also have a reference of next middleware with them in the chain. So Nest middleware is equivalent to express middleware. Middleware functions perform the following tasks like execute any code. We can write any logic in middleware that we want to modify a request object or response object, or we want to scan the request object for any special characters, or we want to perform CORS check, or we want to perform log authentication check on incoming requests. So all of that we can do in middleware. Middleware call the next middleware function in the stack, as I said, right? Apart from request and response, it also have access to the next middleware in the chain. So if you see this diagram, right, this is the client when it is making HTTP request. So the request is going to the middleware. There will be multiple middleware lined up in a chain, and then once all those middleware processing is done, then it will be handed over to controller. Okay friends, so now what we'll do is let me take you to my VS Code editor and show you how can you code middleware in Nestjs framework. I'm going to use my same project what I have shown you in my previous tutorial. Okay friends, so in the previous tutorial we have coded this cats controller and we were able to test all these endpoints, right? I'm able to create the cats and then I'm able to get all the cats in my repository, right? So it is fetching those cats that I have created just now, and I'm also able to get the cats by name, right? So all this is working fine. Now in this tutorial we'll see how to add a middleware. What is the function of middleware? Middleware are the component that executes before the request reaches to your controller, and it has the capability to modify the request and response object as we saw in the theory. So we'll write few middlewares here and we'll see how we can call the middlewares, how it can access the request and response object, right? So let me show you that. Okay, so very first thing that I'll do is I'll create one directory inside the source middlewares, right? And now all our middleware classes will create inside this middleware directory. So let me create one middleware, let's say logger middleware, logger middleware.ps. Now I'll add some code here. Okay, so I have written some code here. If you see, this is logger middleware. We have to implement our Nest middleware, that is out of the box middleware provided by Nestjs, creating a class logger middleware, implementing Nest middleware. Then we have a use function where we have request object of type request, response object of type response, and next object of type next function. Now here we are saying console.log request. So we have defined a logger here, and then we are saying this.logger.debug request. So let me print the request object. We will be printing the request object here. And then at the end, we have to close this with a next so that the control will go to a next middleware in a chain. Now we'll use this middleware and configure it in our module so that it will come into action. You always have to add middleware into your module class so that it will be triggered for specific routes. Let me show you how can we do that. So here in this cat module, we have a controller, we have a provider, and we are exporting this service. Here we have to add our middleware. Middleware always get added into module in form of consumer. Let me show you the syntax. We have to call our middleware in configure function of the module as a consumer. So middleware consumer is there, and then in a consumer.apply we are providing that logger middleware, and we have to say for what all routes I want to call this middleware. I'm saying it's cats because in our controller we have a cat as a route, hence it will be call for all the routes, all the call that we are making to our cats controller. Logger middleware will be called for all the routes inside the cats controller. Now let me do one thing. Let me run the application and see if our logger middleware is getting called. Okay. Okay, I'm in a console. I'm starting my application now. So it started now. Let me go to my postman and try hitting some of the endpoint. So this is the post endpoint where I'm inserting Tomcat. Okay. So it is getting added. Now let us go to the logs. Before request reaching to the controller, our logger middleware is getting called and it is printing the request object. And then the request is going to our cats controller. As we don't have any other middleware, hence after logger middleware, it is directly going to our controller. And controller is calling the cat service. Same way, you can modify the request object, you can modify the response object in middleware, or you can print the content of your request. So you can write login middleware, CORS middleware, and so on. So all those things you can put into middleware and have a chain of middleware which will get called before the request reaches to an actual controller. So there are few more variations. How can we configure middleware for a specific route or a specific method? So let me show you. Friends, before we proceed in this video, I request you to subscribe this channel to grow Code One Digest family. Friends, I am creating a lot of quality videos on programming, coding concepts, design pattern and design principles, cloud and container technologies, but I'm not getting subscribers. I request you to like, share and subscribe this channel so that I can grow our Code One Digest family. Thank you. Okay friends, so now what I have done is I have made a small change in the for route function where instead of giving cats as a route directly here, I am passing a JSON. Now in this JSON, it has two attributes. First is path like cats, and then second is method, on which particular method we want to apply this logger middleware. So we just want to apply for only for get request, not for the post request. Let's test this up. Let me restart my application. Let the application restart to bring the changes into effect. Yes. Let me go to my postman and I'll call this post API first. Let me call this. Yes, so it is successful. Tom is getting created. Let us see in the logs. So if you see here, we don't have a logger middleware called. The request directly came to a controller. That means logger middleware is not getting invoked for post method. Now what I'll do is I'll call the get. So this is my get endpoint. It will get all the gets from the repository. Now let us go back and see the logger middleware called first and then our get controller. So fetching all the gets from the backend. So as soon as the get request came, our logger middleware got triggered. We can make another get call, get cat by name. Let me call this. While calling the get request by name, our logger middleware didn't trigger. Why? Because our path here is cats/tom. We have to make changes in our middleware here. For path, cats/star. Okay, let me restart my application and see if this is coming into effect. Let me call the post first. It is not calling for post as we have configured only for get. Now I'll call get cat by name and see if our logger middleware is getting invoked. So yes, if you see here, logger middleware got invoked and then request came to controller which says fetching cat from repository. So what we understood here is in the path we can also give a wildcard characters like this. We can also exclude certain routes. Let's say on apply function you can call exclude and the path. So what I'm saying is exclude path cats method get. So whenever there is a get request coming on this route, then logger middleware will not get applied. But whenever request coming for path cats and it's of post, then logger middleware will get called. Let me start my application. Okay, I started going to the post call. Yes, so we got a response and logger is getting called, right? And now let me call the get which is excluded from calling. Let's see if it is getting called. So it is not getting called. We got the request here directly to the controller and we got the response here. For get request, not calling the logger middleware. One more concept is there. We can write middleware as a function instead of a class. So let me remove this and just have a function. So this is a function logger which is also having request, response and next function, and here we can print our request object, right? So we can use this logger function. Let's say I'll define the logger function as a middleware in my module. Let me show you that. So now let me copy this, go to my module, and instead of logger middleware I'll use logger function, right? So I'll say import logger function. Okay, now let me restart my application and see if this is working fine. Yes, let it start. So it is started. Now let me hit my post endpoint. It should work for the post and it is excluded for the get. Let us do that. So this is my post. Let me hit this. Yes, so we got a response. Yes, our logger got called here. And now I'll make call to get request. Okay, the response is successful, but let's see if a logger middleware got a call. So here it is not. Logger middleware is not getting called. So we can also define our middleware in form of functions like this. Okay friends, so now there is one more concept of global middleware. What does it mean? Global middleware are the middleware that will get called in all the endpoints across all the modules. So let's say we have a requirement that this middleware should get called everywhere, then I need not to go and add that middleware in every module. I can simply define that in my main.ts file. I'll show you. So I have removed that middleware configuration from my module here. Okay, I don't have it here. Now I'll go to my main.ts. In my main.ts, I'll just add app.use logger function, right? So now if I define that this logger function middleware get called for all the endpoints that I have defined in my project, in my application. Now module doesn't have any middleware configuration, main class having the middleware configuration. Let me start my application. Yes, so application started. Now I'll first make call to post API. Logger middleware function is called here. Now I'll make call to my get API and my middleware is called here, right before the controller. That means once we define it here in our main.ts file, then it will get called everywhere. I hope the concept of middleware is clear with you and you are able to create middleware for your requirement. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, so do subscribe to my channel to grow Code One Digest family. So this is my GitHub repository and this is a project Nestjs complete tutorial. This repository has all the code what I have explained you so far for Nestjs, right? It also has some projects. Apart from that, all the code that I'm explaining is here in this lesson 2. All the controller, module and service providers are available here. And today what we learn is the middleware is also available here. So you can download this code and play with it. If you don't want to write code from the scratch, so you can download the code, clone this repository and start using it, right? So start using it today. Friends, if you like this video, so give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for the more interesting videos. Click on the bell icon for the latest video notifications and do not forget to share this video with all your friends and colleagues. This is very useful information for students, beginners and software engineers. I am putting a lot of efforts in creating these contents, so please help me growing the Code One Digest family. Please subscribe to Code One Digest channel for the latest programming and technology related videos. Thank you.